I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how to make a one-pager for this test 2, and maybe just talk a little bit about the test in general. So essentially there are 3 big direction words that you're going to look for when you start to take this test. The first big direction word is simplify. The second one is factor, or maybe factor completely. And the third one is solve. Now within each of these, and I will have these highlighted, by the way, these will be major highlights in the directions, probably all caps, so that your attention is drawn. Now, when we're talking about simplify, that essentially means to take something that's kind of big and make it smaller. So there are a lot of different ways that we can simplify things. We can certainly combine like terms. We can certainly multiply things out, like if you've got something to FOIL or something to distribute. Maybe you can use exponent rules, like we saw in maybe some of the video. But in any of those cases, you're taking something that's big and you're making it smaller. Now, factoring essentially goes the other way. You're taking something that's already been made smaller and you're breaking it apart into its component pieces. You're essentially unmultiplying. So maybe when you see the word factor, you want to think of the word fracture. Essentially, you're trying to break something apart. Now, I have already done a video on my factoring system, which starts with GCF, and then it talks about how many terms do you have, and then there's some other pieces down here that say, did you finish this completely? Did you factor this completely? And then, of course, you can always check by multiplying. So that's the factoring step. With the solving step, it's almost like the solving step kind of comes before the factoring and also a little bit after the factoring. Because in order to solve the equations in this section, what you're going to do is use factoring. So if you want to solve something, the first thing that you're going to do is make sure that it's set equal to 0. After it's set equal to 0, then you're going to go right to factoring. Then you're going to set each of those factors equal to 0, and you're going to come up with some answers. So the solve process is like the factoring process plus a little bit more. There's an extra step in the beginning where you make sure that it equals 0, and there's an extra step at the end where you take the individual terms and set them equal to 0. You may see a word problem, but overall with those word problems, most of the time what we're looking for is for you to set it up and not actually solve it. Finally, although practicing like we have been in class and like some of the things that I've already posted, especially under that giant factoring practice that has the answers also included, those things are very important and we want you to do that. But keep your eyes open for a Nearpod that might be coming soon. And in that, you can see different ways of asking questions. It isn't just straight out, here's something that I want you to factor, here's an equation to solve. Those things can be done pretty quickly using Photomath, so we won't want to test like that. We want to have slightly different test questions than just something that is presented that simplistically. So again, keep your eye out for a Nearpod so that you can maybe practice a little bit of those. Finally, if you are turning this into your one-pager, you probably want to have more things written in these sections. I gave a very, very brief little synopsis about how to do these things in here, but my guess is that most of my students want to maybe put some more details for themselves in those sections. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.